Sure the parking lot is cleared out here and folks are able to plug in online, so.
In 1994. Well, no, when they redid the street. Well, they had new water line. I had a new water line put in then, so I couldn't flush the toilet and wash my hands at the same time. And now that was next to you.
Okay, why don't we get started? So, we have a few folks here in the audience, and then we have a few tuning in online. So thank you everyone for spending part of Monday with us so we can share with you the details of our upcoming reconstruction of 10th Street. This is the third public open house that we're having, and this is more geared towards construction and expectations with that. Obviously, the design is already complete, and the plans and specs have been bid out. And now we have retained a contractor through MDOT to go ahead and proceed with construction. Introductions here. Mark Gibson's here with the BPW. So Mark will have an opportunity to talk about utilities later on in the slide presentation. Then we also have a couple other folks. Brian Holloman from OMM Engineering. He's going to be the main project manager for the job throughout construction. Tammy Glover here from the Transportation Department is going to be monitoring the chat. So those of you who are tuning in online, feel free to go ahead and utilize that chat if you have any questions, and we'll make sure to check those before we conclude the meeting today. And then we've got our on-site inspector, Doug Hughes. Doug's going to be our liaison with the contractor. He's going to be on site every day the contractor is out there. And he is the one that you'll want to get a hold of if you have any questions that are specific to the field and to construction. So we'll talk a little bit more about how to reach out and get a hold of Doug, but you'll see him on site. He'll be working with the contractor again on a daily basis. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the agenda for tonight. We'll go over the project limits and the development timeline. You've seen these slides before. Then we'll talk about the scope, again, just for review, right? So everyone knows kind of where we left things off last year when council approved the design and where that stands. And then we'll also talk about construction information. We'll try and spend a little more time on that. So we've got some new slides there for phasing and schedule and dates and all that good stuff, and then some expectations for during construction. So we'll have some time at the end for other questions, and then certainly we'll stick around to answer any site-specific questions some of you may have, and also discussion on an individual basis. We'll stick around. Okay, with that, project limits haven't changed from last year. Basically, it's 10th Street from Vinralty to Lincoln. We are doing stubs on College Avenue, and you can see that down there to the south of 10th Street, going to that mid-block crosswalk by the library there on Hope's campus. And then we are planning to take Columbia Avenue up to 9th Street. So those sections of Columbia and College will be reconstructed along with 10th Street. The project development timeline, again, you've seen this slide before, but we're basically sitting about where the star is. Public meeting number 3, we didn't quite make April. We're into May. But construction is going to get started here on May 17, next week, Monday. And then we're going to go through the end of October with the construction schedule. So in terms of the road cross section, And again, apologize for the slide here, but basically I can just describe it to you from Lincoln to Central, and this is basically through College campus. We're going to have the 2 through lanes, parking on one side of the street, and bike lanes throughout. Yeah, on-street parking. Yep, parallel parking. From Central to Pine, we're going to have bike lanes and on-street parking on both sides, so we're going to retain that. And then from Pine to Van Rolte, we're just going to have parking on both sides. No non-motorized path, okay, so no bike lane. We will put sharrows down on the pavement, okay, but those are going to basically be within that travel lane. So then there's going to be parking, again, 8-foot wide parking on both sides, 10-foot travel lanes, very similar to what it is now out there. All right, storm sewer design. We're actually going to take some opportunities here to line some existing storm sewer. So there's a fairly decent sized storm sewer main on 10th Street between Central and Pine. That one is still in pretty good shape according to our videos of the storm sewer. So we're going to go ahead and utilize that vitrified clay pipe, line it, because it probably won't hold up to construction real well, but we'll go ahead and line it and leave it in place, and then the catch basins and all the other appurtenances will be replaced. We're also going to take this opportunity to line a section of Pine Avenue storm sewer between 10th and 11th. Those of you who are around for the 9th Street project know that we did some lining along Pine from basically 9th Street to 10th Street a few years back with the 9th Street project. So this is an opportunity to take that another block further. That's a pretty critical piece of storm sewer infrastructure. It's an old clay pipe from 1913. And yes, it definitely needs a liner because we're going to be riding over top of it. We're going to extend the Columbia Avenue storm sewer main to the south. That's more for the college campus there. And to do the same with the College Avenue storm sewer. That'll get connected into some infrastructure at that mid-block crosswalk at the limit there on the south end. So that's storm sewer. I'm going to hand over to Mark the keys to the car, and he's going to talk about the utilities.
Our sanitary work will be mostly focused down in the campus area from River to Lincoln, River to College. This is to replace some old sewer in that area, get down to, we actually have 2, get down to 1 sewer and replace that. We have lined the sanitary sewer in other locations, so we'll be focusing on some sanitary lateral work in those spots also, but a lot of the sanitary work is just focused down by campus for now. It's our first chance to really get back in there. Water main, we're going to end up replacing most of the water main on the project, and that includes some replacement of the water services in that area. So the most of the water services will get replaced with the historic age of the main. So the water service replacement is one of our big concerns with this work. This relates to some changes in the state law where if your water service had any part that was connected to a lead-containing material, we have to replace the water service up to the meter in your basement. To do this, I do need an agreement out of the property owners that allow us to enter the property and replace what is essentially still owned by the homeowner. We're going to use a trenchless technique, so we should be able to get that pipe in without tearing up your yard. And all the work inside the home is done by a professional plumber. So we're focusing on this. The water service replacement refers to this portion of a water service coming into the home that will, during this project only is when we're going to be working on that. The little piece between the main and the home. So if you got a letter and some stuff from me and you haven't sent it in, please do. Or flag Doug down when we get on site, and we need to get that signed agreement out of you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So there are some snowmelt improvements that are planned for the project. Apologize for the scale of this map, but basically that area is between Central and River. So we do intend to put snowmelt on the sidewalk, particularly on the south side along the park, but then we're also going to hold public meetings here in the next couple of weeks and talk about sidewalk on the north side in that block with the property owners there. It's AT&T, the parking lot there at the corner of Central, and then there's like a condo development. So those of you who may be tuning in from that area, just know that there'll be subsequent meetings specific to snowmelt and the extent to which we do that work. So there'll be a series of meetings, and that will involve an assessment for those property owners that have the snowmelt being proposed out in front of your parcels. So that's about it for the snowmelt. I know we've had some other inquiries about snowmelt. And again, for those folks that we're in progress talking with, we'll certainly continue to correspond. So we may grow the snowmelt a little bit, and that's not uncommon. Unfortunately, we always get some 11th hour interest, and we'll deal with it. We always have. So we like snowmelt. We want to put it in where we can. So still opportunities for those of you who may be considering it. Just let us know sooner rather than later. All right, so some construction-specific information. We're going to start next Monday. We're going to finish at the end of October, hopefully before Halloween. Throughout the project, trash pickup will continue as normal. We ask that you bring your cans out to the end of the driveway as you normally would. We ask that you put a piece of duct tape on it with your address number. I know sometimes the contractor has to grab those cans and bring them to the end of a block or something like that. And it's just helpful to get those cans back to the parties they belong to if there's an address attached to them. Mail delivery, I think this is a foot route, right? So that'll continue with mail delivery. We'll coordinate, make sure that USPS knows what's going on. Another thing you'll see arrive shortly. I know you got the notices for the meeting, but now that we have the contractor in place, we typically will list out the construction phasing and then the key contacts on that postcard. So be looking for that postcard. That'll have good project information on it. The other thing is we did stand up a website on our City of Holland website. That was listed on this latest correspondence. We'll put it on the postcard as well. We're going to update that. Tammy's going to keep that maintained on a weekly basis. We meet with a contractor at least once a week. And then the offshoot of those meetings, we typically try and capture that in an update for the project. So be looking for that. We reserve this for when we get ready to change phases. We'll typically either send out a postcard, put message boards out for that next phase, or even if we've got your email, we'll send you an email, not only weekly with that update, but then also ahead of these phase changes, right, when we're going from one section to the next. So keep an eye out for that. And then door tags. So you'll see those from time to time. Typically that's going to be related to utility work, and typically that's going to be water service related. So if there's an interruption that's planned on your water service, i.e. when we tie the water service over from the old main to the new main, or if they're running new service lines to your meter in the basement, then you'll probably get some interaction that way. So again, those are just door tags that they typically put a day or two in advance out on your front doors. So Don't be surprised if you see those. Those are perfectly normal, and those will just have the information right on the tag. So, fresh concrete and fresh asphalt. There's going to be a lot of that on this project. We typically like to see 3 days of cure time for concrete. Okay, so if you've got a driveway that's just been poured, or a sidewalk that's just been poured, or curb and gutter that's just been poured, we ask that you stay off of that for at least 3 days. That's typically the magic number when we get strength, especially when the weather is warm. So we're going to keep it to 3 days, hopefully. And again, you may get some more correspondence from us on that. And then the other thing with asphalt, there's going to be at least 3 different days throughout the project. Again, one for each phase where, multiple because we have multiple layers, but where the asphalt crew is going to be out laying down the mix. And again, we'll give you advance notice on that, but we typically try and keep people off of that for at least a 4-hour period. So a lot of times what that means is if folks want to get out in the morning, usually before 8 o'clock, that's not too big of a deal. But if it's, mid-morning, something like that, then, you got to plan ahead on those paving days and just park your vehicle on a side street or something like that so that you're not having to deal with a bunch of asphalt guys trying to paint the road black. So, again, we'll give you advance notice on that. On the base course, that first layer of asphalt that goes down on the gravel, we don't get too excited if you drive through that. We prefer you don't, but obviously there's another layer going on top of that. So not critical. The top course, though, that last layer, we really want to try and keep people off of that for a 4-hour period so that sets up. And it's all a heat thing, right? So we're trying to get the heat out of that asphalt so that it sets up. Sometimes on a windy day that's cold, it'll set up quick. Sometimes on a hot day with no wind, it'll take some time. So typically 4 hours will get us there, sometimes a little sooner than that. Please don't turn sharply on the new mat. That always ends up causing trouble for us. So if you do find yourself driving on the new asphalt, we ask that you just take nice, easy turns, get into your driveway that way. The top course of asphalt, we get a much better finished product when we have 2 pavers working in tandem, paving the whole width of the road at once. So there's no cold joint down the center of the road. Again, that presents its own traffic and accessibility challenges. And so, again, you'll hear from us ahead of that. But just know that that top course, when that goes down, that is does require some time and some logistics, if you will, planning ahead for that. So, again, we're trying to get the best finished product we can. A lot of times if you look at old asphalt that's fallen apart, that joint is the first thing that falls apart, those cold joints. So we're trying to eliminate that with the way we do the top course and the full width, again, to get some longevity in that pavement section. So that's the details there. Let's continue. Construction phasing. Okay, so phase 1 is going to be from Lincoln to College Avenue, including those stub streets on Columbia and College, okay? So that's phase 1. That's going to be May to early July. All right, and then hopefully slightly before the 4th of July, we're going to send out a postcard to you. We're going to get message boards over in this phase 2, and we're going to transition to phase 2, which is going to take from basically early July to early September. And that's going to go from College Avenue to Pine Avenue. And we are going to try and stay out of River Avenue for as long as we possibly can, because that's really trouble traffic-wise. So, and then the final phase will be early September to the end of October. That'll include Pine Avenue out to Vinralty. All right, so that is the construction phasing schedule. I can tell you last year with our 16th Street project, we about hit it to the day, which is ironic. That's pretty unusual. So we'll see how this turns out, but it's the same contractor doing this one, and I'm making a bet with the superintendent saying he can't do as good as he did last year, so we'll see. But again, you got to take that with a little grain of salt, right? A week here, a week there, depending on weather, right? Depending on how things go. But I'd be surprised, though, if we're pushing it much past the end of October here with construction schedule. So that's the phasing. You really shouldn't see a whole lot of activity. You know, the tree removals, for those of you, just to clarify, the tree removals have already took place, and those things are done. We do intend to, when the project's all said and done, replant trees. So we're very interested in doing that. We fully intend to do that. We've done that on all our other reconstruction projects, and it's a good thing to do. So you'll see new street trees coming in. That probably won't be till November, though. We really like to wait to get those trees in the ground until things are dormant. So typically that's a November thing for us. And it's a different contractor. We've tried it, doing it with the prime contractors. They really don't care a whole lot about trees and, you know, how things look from that perspective at the end. So we get a landscaping contractor to do it, and it's turned out much better. So we do it through a separate contract with folks that are in the tree business, so to speak, to try and get a better product. And it has been good over the years. All right. Sprinkling systems. Best to notify us ahead of time if you think there's going to be trouble with sprinkling systems. And by that I mean anything within the road right of way, anything on the road side of the sidewalk. So let us know about it, make sure we are aware of it, and then before that construction hits your phase, before we hit your phase, it would be great if you could flag those for us. And then we can work with you and Doug specifically on what needs to be done. But there is an allowance in the project to restore those and repair those any sprinkler damage that may occur. We have some allowance set aside to make repairs. So those repairs can either be done by our prime contractor, typically operating through a sub. A lot of times it's, any one of several different local sprinkler companies. Or if you've got a sprinkler company that you work with that's familiar with your system, we certainly will allow those repairs to be made, and we'll make those reimbursements to the contractor that you use. I will say that with a caveat that we would like to see a bid before that work takes place, right? We want to make sure that we agree with what they intend to do with the sprinkling repairs. So, and again, we've done this years now, several years, so most local sprinkling companies know us and appreciate what we're trying to do there. So, but yes, make sure that you put us in touch with your contractor if in fact that's the way you'd like to go with it. Sump pump connections. You know, I don't think it's too bad through here with sump pumps. Typically that's in the higher numbered streets where we see a lot of those. But definitely sump pumps should discharge clear water, right? And this can be groundwater, this could be roof drains, this could be perimeter drains. What this should not be are floor drains or like laundry drains or anything like that should not be hooked into this, because this is going to the storm sewer and out to Lake Macatawa. So again, clear water, sump pumps, we want to know about those. If those are currently connected to our system, our storm sewer system, then we'll reconnect those. If they are not, but you'd like to get it connected to our storm sewer system, let us know, and we can coordinate with you or your contractor to get that stuff connected in. We do not do blind taps, and that is basically taking a sump pump line and tapping it into the side of one of our storm sewer pipes, where nobody a year from now would know where that is or how to locate that. So we typically require that all those storm drain connections, sump pumps, roof drains happen at a structure, at a catch basin, so that The troubleshooting is as simple as looking through the grate on the storm sewer to see if it's working or not. And you don't have to get a sewer camera or anything like that. So again, we do that. Now, in order to facilitate that, we put PVC sleeves underneath most all the driveway approaches. Okay, so if you have a driveway approach and you don't have a catch basin out in front of your property, you will have a driveway sleeve. And that'll allow us to get to a structure that's either way to a neighbor, across the neighbor's frontage, but in the public right of way and underneath driveways to get to that nearest catch basin. So again, those also, by the way, can be used. We typically oversize those sleeves so that if you do want to run sprinklers or whatever through there, you can. And those are typically marked. We typically have the contractor put a little piece of rebar there so you can bug it and find it with a metal detector. And those aren't buried too deep either. Yeah, the owner is responsible. So again, if you're not connected already, but you want to be connected, then just, again, have your contractor coordinate with us, with Doug in particular, to get those connected in. All right, our field contact, Doug Hughes there with the 4-leaf clover lucky hat on. He is going to be the construction inspector for the job. Again, as long as he's not taking a really long vacation, he is going to be the guy that's out there every day with the contractor. He's going to know exactly what's going on, and he's going to be the one that is going to be best informed and able to coordinate with any questions that may come up, particularly from a field perspective. So the postcard that we send out to you will have Doug's cell phone number on it. And so that's a great one to just put on a magnet on the refrigerator and shoot him a call or a text if there's a question at any point, particularly during construction. Okay. I'm sure I forgot stuff, but at any rate, open the door for questions, and then we'll get to nothing on the chat. You're kidding me. All right. Yes, sir. Name and address? Pat Hall, what was the address? 248 West 10th Street. Yes, Pat. Yes, we do. So we shared those with council last year towards the fall, and that hasn't changed. But basically, it's a narrowing of that area in the intersection, right, to try and keep it as short a distance as possible. But yeah, there's other elements to that. It is happening on this project, so that'll be part of phase 3 that gets built with this project. So that the limits, and I know you didn't see them up there, but this is good to share with everyone. Those limits are going to start at Boatworks and end just to the south of 10th Street, okay? Because there's some parking there that I think currently can obstruct line of sight and things like that. So we want to adjust that so that we clear that deck, if you will, to make sure that those line of sights are real established and clear. So yes, that is going to be part of the project. There's also going to be a dynamic sign, right, that does the speed as you come around the curve. And so that is going to be, I guess, a permanent element, if you will, of this project. So hopefully that will also calm some speeds down there as well. So good question. Are we good? Did I get to everything? Anything else?
Well, you talked about the south side of 10th Street and Relocate.
Yep.
Several parking spaces may be eliminated along there.
Yeah, hang on one second. Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ed Hislop,
Ed Hislop,
237 Van Rolte.
237 Veneralty. You're right on the corner. Yep, I remember you from last. I think it's 1 or 2 spaces that have been affected by that, right?
There's a storm drain right in
There
there.
is, yeah. We got it covered. The whole storm system, as I mentioned before, most of the pipes in there are old clay vitrified pipes. The whole route, whether it's a small pipe or big pipe. So everything's coming out, everything's getting new.
North side of 10th and Relocate?
North side of 10th and Vernolte, I believe, yes.
What are you gonna do there?
Just new infrastructure.
But there,
So new structures and new pipe.
okay.
Yes.
Is it gonna be around the corner or just on 10th Street?
Help me out. Which way are we going around the corner? We're on Vernolte?
Yep, on Relocate.
Yep.
North side,
On the north side.
yep, towards Boulevard.
Yeah, I think there's a new structure right at Boatworks, right? It's on Vernolte, but right at the Boatworks driveway. So I think there's a set there that we're doing. We can look at the plans too. Yep, you bet. But yeah, all that stuff's old. And granted, the project's not Vernolte, it's 10th Street. But because we're doing the narrowing, right, we thought, you know what, let's just go ahead and do it, so.
Now, you won't be doing anything on Relocate, though, correct?
Yes, we will.
So you would restripe the crosswalk sign?
Yes, all that stuff, it's all new.
Okay.
Yep,
So
yep.
you'll be going into the intersection part?
Yes, yeah. Most all of these intersections where we're crossing north-south streets, basically the avenues, we're going through them. So 10th Street's going to go through, all the infrastructure is going to go through. So that includes the underground as well. But what that means, though, is that on those phases, and this is part of the reason why we're phasing it, is, the access is going to be limited, while we have that under construction. So those avenues may not be navigable when they're under construction. You may have to go a couple of avenues down to get across 10th Street. So, and that's why, let's go back here.
October timeline?
Yep, end of October. Oh, for Vernolte, yeah, Vernolte's going to be at the very end, and we've got how long are we giving them in Vernolte? Yeah, it's a few weeks. We've constrained them on Vernolte to a couple of weeks. Same thing with Lincoln.
They'd have to go over to Washington Boulevard to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's gonna be detours and signs and everything like that, but basically, it's gonna be tough. Maple Avenue and Washington, right? Those are probably gonna be no-goes during this phase 3, and you'll have to go to Pine or Vernolte, right? And then at the end, we'll take Vernolte out and do that real quick to wrap things up.
Fuel trucks could go down another street all the way to the reach.
Yeah, we're gonna have to catch them, right? We're gonna have to catch them before they get there. So that's always fun with the fuel trucks. So the other piece of this too, Lincoln, we're kind of handling in a similar fashion, right? Lincoln's a pretty important north-south. Lincoln, we've constrained to a couple of weeks. That's gonna come right out of the gate. So we've got a message board out there already right now saying, hey, starting on the 17th, you're going to have to follow the detour for Lincoln. So that same thing will happen with Vernolte, right? You'll see a message board out there before we take it down. We'll start doing that coordination a couple of weeks ahead. So we'll talk to the folks at the terminal, right, and say, hey, you got to do this. Inevitably, we'll have a fuel truck that sneaks by, right? And these guys will make it work, and they'll just get them through.
Yeah, they come down 8th Street or 7th Street, expect to get through, there's no way to turn.
Right. The other thing that is important too is River Avenue, obviously. That one's a big one for us. And we do have to get a couple things through River. So we're going to try and do that part width and keep traffic at least one lane in each direction going at all times. But River, that's going to be a tough couple of weeks. And again, we've constrained them on River. Yeah, that's the plan at least there.
So when you bore from the street up into the basement, do you do electrical?
I'm going to pass the mic over to our expert.
Yes, so the question is, when we place the water service from the street into the home, is it similar to electrical? And the answer is yes. We use copper instead of the plastic, but often it is like the same contractors that do the same things. So yes, it is a directional drill into the home.
Dig a hole inside the basement?
I've seen them as small as about 3 inches. And so, yes, it's kind of terrifying that they can hit this little hole in the wall.
They've got a few years' experience, and they've got a good track record with it.
Yeah.
So, it's a known that the contractor that does this, Gustafson,
Yep.
we worked with them for the past couple of years, and it's pretty surprising at how accurate they can get those boards.
So they're very accurate. They get it in there. I would say this is the industry standard. So if you called a plumber or anybody else to do this work, they would do the exact same thing. So it's not like a special one-off.
I don't know how much I move stuff I need to get, like my shocker in that area, so I move so much.
So this does bring up something we discussed on water service replacements. This is an opportunity to potentially relocate the water service location in the home. And sometimes we will try to, we might talk you into that, saying, hey, it's shorter over here, it's a straight in, it comes in the best spot. And when we do that, we would still reconnect all the internal plumbing at our cost. Or if it is in a particularly bad location in your home, it's also a good time to talk to us about that. Like, hey, this comes in like underneath the staircase, I can't do anything with it, can we get it over here in the utility room?
Yeah,
Talk to us.
this is the time to do that.
Yeah, this is the one time in 100 years that it's a good time to do that. So,
But we certainly want to be working in the unfinished portion of your basement if you can.
yeah, all things considered.
Am I getting a green light? Okay, I have an online person who's asking if they work on 10th Street, how they can get updates. I know we have a pretty good email list going for residents, but if people work in that area and want to receive the updates as well, they can send me their email address to transportation@cityofholland.com, or they can call 616-928-2430, and I can add them to the email list.
Yeah, and again, that email list typically goes out once a week. It may, just because we're working in Hope College initially, they're going to be in on all those weekly meetings with us. So we may not do a whole lot of updates coming out of the gate, but certainly as we get into the other parts of 10th Street that aren't on campus, then we'll make sure we keep those weekly updates coming. And again, email's the best way to do that, but we'll also post that same information on our website, so you'll have it in that regard too. Now, the other thing too, in terms of construction scheduling, we'll keep this stuff on our website too, so you guys know. But again, the contractor may be moving ahead. If he's going a little bit faster than normal or than expected, then, this could turn into mid-June, right, where we want to switch to phase 2. But we'll communicate that ahead of time with everyone, okay? So on-street parking, that's a good question. So May 15 was when that started, and I think it's middle of October when that ends. Tammy, do you know?
I think it's May 15th to October 15th.
October 15, yeah.
Kind of what I remember the sign saying.
Yep. And so, again, here's the thing. We don't get too excited with ticketing folks who are on the route. The police obviously know that we've got construction going on. We communicate and coordinate with them. There's going to be times where you have to park on the road in front of your driveway when we're pouring typically it's a 2 or 3 step process, right? There's going to be a time where the concrete curb and gutter gets poured, that you're not going to be able to get access to your driveway. There's going to be a time where the driveway approach gets poured, that you won't have access. And then there's another time where the sidewalk that crosses your driveway will get poured. Now, some of those things may happen together, and sometimes it may not, just depending on where the contractor and subcontractor are with the various phases of that specific area. And so I would just ask that, again, go ahead. Typically, folks will park right next to their driveway on the street. There's not going to be any through traffic. It's all going to be local traffic because it's just going to be gravel or that first layer of asphalt. And so nobody's going to be ticketing regardless of the time of year. All right. So, and if you do get a ticket, contact either Tammy or myself or Doug, and we can work with the PD, right, to make sure that goes away. So, but no, the intent here is to try and work with everybody. This is This is trying, right? Nobody likes construction. It's going to be great when it's done, but the process is rough, right? So we want to try and work with everyone as best we can. Communication is great. We certainly want to hear, particularly if there's something that just doesn't seem right, feel right, something like that. Let Doug know in the field. That's going to be the quickest way to get things addressed. And then obviously he can communicate that with us. Yes, sir.
Can you sleeve a drain pipe, does that restrict the flow?
Sleeve a drain pipe?
You talked about sleeve.
Lining, yes, lining. Okay, sure. Let's talk about that a second. I don't know if I have a really good slide of that, but at any rate, we're talking about, yes, so we're lining a piece of storm sewer on 10th Street between Central and Pine, and then another piece between Pine, between 10th and 11th. So the question is, does that restrict the flow if you line them? And I'll say a couple of things to that. One, typically the so the flow capacity of a storm sewer is dependent on several things. The big one obviously is internal area, right? Or how big is the pipe? The other thing though is typically the surface. What's the texture of the pipe? How smooth it is, right? So this liner is really slippery. So typically the trade-off between the liner and what that, I'll call it just coarse material, whether it's vitrified clay or it's concrete or it's whatever it may be, that liner typically makes up for a lot of that difference because it does take up the interior wall of that liner, does take up an inch or so of space, if you will. Now, for this particular situation, though, if those of you who have been around a while will know that we put a pretty big storm sewer down Central Avenue. That was done back in 2015. And we basically redirected a lot of the flow that would normally go down the 10th Street main, and we redirected that down Central. So right now we just have you guys are getting more than you probably wanted, but there's a little connection piece right there on the northeast quadrant of Centennial Park that still has that connection, right? But it's just been restricted a little bit. And basically most of that flow now goes down Central. So we really don't need the capacity that we had there because of that connection that's made. However, I'm a big proponent in, hey, if it's there and it's in good shape, unfortunately, I was around in 2008 and 2009 when those big storms came. And so I like having flexibility in the system, if you will, and maybe a little more capacity. And so by lining that, we're not giving up that capacity necessarily, or we're not retiring it, if you will. We're just lining it so that it can handle. It's more of a strength question than it is a capacity question.
We ran a pipe, a camera, I should say, down through the pipe all the way to the street, and that takes apart, must be replaced because it's like green.
Yeah, so that's C900 pipe. You're talking about sanitary sewer, probably? Yeah. Do you have a specific question about sanitary?
Would that be replaced again?
No, especially if it's green. If it's green, that's good. Yep.
We had to figure out how far it's green, but then
Yeah.
it's green up to the house.
So we're going to hit on a couple issues on that one. In the city of Holland, the homeowner owns the lateral from the house to the home. So we touch the laterals when we rebuild the sewer, but we only rebuild them up to the property line. It gets back to the right of entry into property. So when you see that pipe transition that is going to the new plastic pipe, it's yeah, about where the sidewalk is, property line. It's PVC SDR 26 plastic pipe. We're not going to replace those. So part of what's going on with this project is we're overlapping between old and new, infrastructures. So that's why my sanitary is really limited. Is at times we have rebuilt sewer in other areas.
Down at the west end.
Down at the west end particularly. So your lateral, while it's probably now old, is up to our current standards. So we won't be working with that. And I would throw in with the lining of the pipes, what we often see, because we do a lot more than you do, the old clay has pipe joints, usually about every 2 feet. And so that means every 2 feet you have an opportunity for an obstruction, for a problem. And you only see that in storm sewers when you need it, which is in a bad storm. So by lining it, you actually get a much better product because it almost provides no opportunity for obstructions in your storm sewer. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Could I get your name and address, please?
Monica Donnelly,
Yep.
238 Washington.
Monica Donnelly, 238 Washington. Okay, yes.
On the north side of 10th Street, between Pine and Veneralty, is the street going to be made wider there?
Okay, so north side of 10th Street between Pine and Veneralty. So yes, there is some widening there, and thank you for bringing up that question. Again, the road elements are staying the same. Okay, so there's going to be parking on both. There is currently parking on both sides. There's currently the 2 through lanes. Okay, that will remain the case after we're done. It's just going to be 18. It's approximately 18 inches on either side. Okay, that the widening is occurring there. On both sides, yes. Now, what that is, though, what we're trying to address there is, when we ran the crash analysis through here, we found that there was a lot of side swipe accidents. And so we feel by just bumping this out a little bit, that hopefully that will eliminate a lot of that side swipe activity that we've been seeing. It's kind of unusual. So I was looking at it on different side street, 11th Street, you know, some of the other streets. 11th Street's a little bit wider. We are not seeing the number of side swipe crashes. So it's an attempt to try and address that. And we feel that we can accommodate that change without impacts, any additional impacts to the trees and things like that we've already. Sidewalk width is the same, yeah. Is it wholesale replacement of sidewalk? I think it is. Yeah. Yeah, for the most part. You know, if there's a really pristine section that we don't have a utility that's got to go under it or through it or whatever, you know, we may look to try and save stuff. But primarily what we found is, and this is, you know, years back we used to do this and try and save 2 or 3 squares here or there, and it ended up being a patchwork of stuff that nobody was really proud of or happy with at the end, and we'd still have problems. So this really is an opportunity to just upgrade everything. So that's it. But the sidewalk's basically going back in the same spot, in the same width. Now, the thing that I want to caution you on is that in order to get this infrastructure in, there's typically form boards and things like that that have to get installed. So that's typically more space that's required so that we can put the facility where we want to put it. So for those of you who may be, and I think this is where you're going, talking about, okay, how bad is the parkway going to get tore up between the sidewalk and the road edge? And that's a little bit tricky. You know, I would encourage you to err on the side of caution. If there's something really valuable that you have in that parkway, you know, maybe it's some unique stepping stones or brickwork or something like that. Before we get there with our construction phase, I would suggest that you pull that from the area. Keep it, right, because we can oftentimes have our contractor install it when we're done as part of the restoration. But the thing that I would hate to have happen is if that stuff just gets thrown in the back of a dump truck when they're tearing everything out. The road grade, the challenging thing here is that the road grade is going to change, right? The vertical grade of the road isn't going to be in the exact same spot as it was or as it is currently. It's going to be close, but it'll be off, you know, it will not be in the same spot. So with that, we've got to match everything back in, and that includes between the curb and the sidewalk is typically where that blending occurs. And so just know that obviously we're going to try and disturb as little as we can, but certainly there's going to be a need to go, you know, 2 feet behind the existing curb so that we can get the new curb in there and then still place and remove the form boards in order to do that. So I guess that's a rule of thumb, particularly in that area, that is not a consistent measurement throughout the entire project. So if others have that question, again, for the purposes of Venralty to Pine, yes, Venralty to Pine, 18 inches is where that new curb's going to be. Give us another half a foot for sure. No, 18 inches on a side, so 3 total. Okay, so. Almost. So the curb right now, the curb and gutter is 2 feet, right? So we're just moving 18 inches in. The fire hydrants may move a little bit.
We end up moving a few feet to get one in and keep the old one and then swapping them out, but generally if there's one between your neighbor's house, there'll still be one in that same neighborhood.
We haven't changed those to our knowledge. And the hydrants are going in on the same side? Yeah, so hydrants same side, they'll be close to where they are now, would be the thought. Yep. So good questions. Again, for those of you who do, want to look to save some of that parkway area, Doug is a good one to contact ahead of time, because he's going to be able to coordinate with the construction guys. We will certainly do what we can, but again, if there's something that's really critical that's in that space, highly encourage you to pull it now to do that.
What about the sidewalk? Is that, what kind of, in order to, the forms of the sidewalk, is there a standard measurement for that as well?
Yeah, it can vary, right? So the sidewalk's going to move around a little bit vertically too, potentially. So again, you got to get a form board in there. So, at least 6 inches, right, to get it in there. So, yep. There are some retaining walls that are right on the back side of the sidewalk that basically separates the sidewalk from the private property there. We've worked with a few of the property owners on replacing those. A few of them didn't respond to us, but certainly that is the goal, right? A lot of those retaining walls have tilted or leaned or things like that. They can be a hazard to not only the pedestrians, but the sidewalk plows as well. So we'd like to try and get those little and these are little guys, right? Like 1 or 2 foot high. But we want to get those righted and true again, vertical, so that our sidewalk plow doesn't catch it, or somebody walking or biking, whatever. So that would be the goal. And like I say, we got a few of those covered with the plans, but unfortunately we didn't get responses from some folks. So those of you who may be online or out there, certainly get in touch with us if you do have one of those little retaining walls, because we'd like to at least take a look at it, make sure it's in good shape, or work with you to get it replaced. Again, this is something on us, not you, so you might as well take advantage of it.
Will there be any signage change and then located and
Yeah, so I believe there will be. Certainly that dynamic sign that I talked about, that isn't there now. That will be there. I think that's going to be solar powered. And then as far as the other signage, I think it's going to be pretty similar. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of change. The markings, right? The markings will all be new. So the pavement markings will be new. And then the signage that's there will return. It may look a little different, but it's going to try and get the same message across.
When they took telephone poles down on Relocate,
Yes.
they eliminated the fire department sign.
Oh.
So that needs to be probably moved farther to the south.
Uh-huh.
That's one more distraction, people coming around the curve.
Yep. Yep. You want to note that, Brian, about that? You do? Okay. Maybe we can slide that.
Parking is on Relocate rather than the curve.
Yeah, right. Good point. Good point. Okay. Maybe we can tuck that on the south side of the intersection. Be good.
I just think there's one more distraction coming.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Joel Russer, I'm with Pillar Church.
Oh, yeah.
If
Okay, Joel Rusher, 57 East 10th with the church, yep.
A couple questions. One is Snowmelt. We're very interested in adding that into the sidewalk, even though our sidewalk is pristine because it's 18 months old.
Okay,
So what's the process of
yeah, so we'll have to talk after this. What was the church?
filler?
Pillar, oh, yeah, got it, okay, yep,
The other one, the other question refers to utility interruption times.
yep,
We'll have activities going on during the church.
yep.
And is that a
The-
hour?
Yeah, the big one's water, right, that's the big one. Everyone's wondering.
Yeah, so for individual service connections, we knock on your door and say, you know, we gotta move your service over to the new main and such. 15 minutes to an hour, just depends on how well the pipe kind of fits together and, you know, just like, just, yeah, just like, yeah, just like plumbing at my house.
And a specific date?
When we have to do full street block shutdowns, we'll hang notices on doors and work, you know, try to get it either like after breakfast or after lunch so that you can get up, you can get ready for your day, head out, and then like 8:30, 9, we shut it off and we work till lunch, and then you guys, residents can cook lunch and so on, and then we shut it down and try to get back on before dinner.
So again, coordination with Doug, right, if there's times of day, right, because you're kind of unique in that block with Pillar,
And
just make sure you communicate that, because as the new main gets installed, typically the scenario is, right, we've got to cut over the old main to the new main at the block ends. So we've got to cut over the old main to the new main at typically block ends or something like that. So that's one outage, if you will. That, again, door hanger, that kind of thing. Doug certainly is in the loop on that. But then the next piece is cutting the actual individual services over. So you're pulling them from the old main. So we keep that old main in service, right? So you run off the old main while the new main's being brought online. And then, boom, the services come last. So,
Could be 2 interruptions.
yes, right? 2,
two
3?
to
Oh,
3.
come on, 3?
We'll have one interruption when we tie the new main to the old main, to feed the new main. You'll have one interruption when we do the service to the building.
Yeah.
And then you'll have one interruption when we tie over the rest of the new main to the existing main at the other intersections. So there'll be one spot where we tie it in to feed the new main, and there'll be probably a couple other spots that need to be tied in after we run the services. So there'll be 2 major shutdowns and 1 minor hour shutdown at the most.
If you have special events, please let us know ahead of time, and
Yeah.
we can certainly work with you to make sure that we're not creating a big mess.
And would sanitary sewer coincide with water?
Typically,
Yeah,
we don't
we're-
see a sanitary sewer or service interruption, because because we have to lay that pipe in place of the old one, and so that we just make those connections as we move through.
Doing it live. That's always fun.
We might knock and say, give me 10 minutes,
Yeah, give us 10 minutes.
but
DPW was doing something on the corner of Involved and 10th, and when we filled our bathtub, it was dirty water.
So we are preparing for this project. We are churning valves, and what you're seeing is the water main in 10th Street is, to the best of my records, 120 to 130 years old. So what that means is you have 130 years of hard water settling deposits on it, and it probably looked a little bit brownish, orangish, and that is, I'm trying to remember my chemistry. Calcium oxide. So it's not dangerous or anything like that. It's just the hard water deposits kind of break loose as we were working the valves and building pressure and, you know, checking through to make sure that when we do need to shut you down at 9 a.m., we turn the valve, and at 9 a.m. the water's down, so we can keep our promises. So yes, and you'll probably see that a little bit more as we get through the project and continue work through this old main and that stuff kind of scale comes off. But when we get done, it should go away because the new main won't have it.
Yeah. Hey, one other thing, is plumbers running sanitary?
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about that, because you guys will see this in the field, and I think it's good.
Yeah,
It's a good thing. so.
Mistig and plumbers televising laterals. It's going to look like a circus parade of flags in your front yard. Please don't take them up. If it begins to get to be a problem, talk to Doug. But that tells the contractor where your underground power lines, your telephone, gas lines are, and then we don't tear them up and ruin the day. So, but there does come a time when we can take Mistig flags out of the ground. So if it's getting to be a hassle and you got a big weed, talk to Doug and he can verify that flag can come out. Same thing, sanitary, we don't necessarily we know where you're connected to the main. We don't know where it goes on your property or where it's at. So we hire in a contractor that's going to televise that for us. And so you'll see an additional set of green marks come out and some folks probably wandering around looking like they're looking for the metal detector and such. That is to locate the pipe, the sanitary pipe into your house. And they will paint all that on the ground, and some folks get really nervous when they're got all these green marks all over the place, but that's us trying to give that information to the contractor too. Tell them that, hey, when you come through here, you better find a house connected to the sewer, and if you don't, we have some problems.
Yeah. So that company, that subcontractor is called Plumbers Environmental. They have these kind of dull yellow trucks, but they'll be the ones, and it'll happen probably pretty early. So we won't wait for the phase, right? You may see them in the next couple of weeks, go through everything. And they'll be out there running the sewer main, the sanitary sewer main, but then they also have this little lateral camera that they shoot up the laterals, like Mark's saying, so we know where that stuff is, and then they locate it as they run that camera up there. So, and then we can also get at least an idea of what kind of shape everything's in. So, yeah. And that's going to happen, before soon. So you'll see them out there. It's a good thing. I'm glad we're doing it. It catches a lot of stuff. So, and usually it's all, within the right of way, we're able to address it. So, yep.
Also a question about the phasing.
Yes.
So will you start and complete phase one before you get to phase two?
Yeah, so good question. And so we'll go into the weeds a little bit here. So our phase one, you'll see when they come out of the gate, they're not going to go all the way down to college at first. So we've got phase one broken down into like an A and a B. And so what we're trying to do here is, typically the way the contracting world works, at least in Michigan around here, is there's an underground crew, right, that'll come in, and then behind them there's a completely different set of guys that put the road back together and build it. But we don't like to lose that underground crew, right? We want to keep those guys on site and keep progress moving. So typically we allow them to move ahead on that next phase. And so that's kind of how we've set this up. And that's why I mentioned what I did, that, hey, if they're running ahead of schedule, we could allow them to go into like a phase 2A a couple of weeks ahead just to keep their underground guys going. But again, we try and keep them penned in, as much as we can. We pay a premium for that too. A lot of the road commissions and things like that, they'll just turn them loose on the whole job. We try and avoid that because we're the city and there's a lot more residents typically along our routes. And we just, we're mindful to try and keep the headache to a minimum. So
what
yeah.
you'd see is north-south traffic until we get up to that intersection. Then we'll close the intersection when we're ready to tear up the pavement and continue on down the road in that phase shift. And typically it's asked for to continue the underground work, and typically we grant it as long as that previous phase is being worked on by the other crew. And so there's about a couple week overlap when the other road takes shape really fast, that gravel, the pavement, the curb, all that starts really coming together, and it starts behaving like a normal road when we send them on to the next phase.
Yeah, and keep in mind too that oftentimes there's two layers of asphalt that go down. There's a base course and a top course. That base course, we want to get that down as quick as we can, just because it's something nicer to drive on, right? The dust kind of settles down and things like that. So we really try and push them on the base course. On that top course, we may combine a few things. So you may be running on base course for a little while, probably not on phase 3, right? But on the earlier phases, there may be a 2-inch lip, right, at the curb where folks are having to drive over that to get into their drives. But really, that, again, is to try and minimize the disruptions, right? Because that final lift of asphalt is a pain in the butt for everybody, because we have 2 pavers taking up the whole street and, moving down the street at the same time. Now, I will say that work goes pretty quick once they get started, because they usually have twice the trucking and everything just moves pretty smooth once they get it cranked up. The other thing that I'll say to that is that, and unfortunately this is Michigan and weather, but if we do have a rain event, right, or it looks like we have a rain event, then typically, and this is in our notices out to you all, we'll try and identify what that rain day is going to be ahead of time. So you all know, okay, hey, if this is a Friday that they're paving or a Saturday that they're scheduled to pave, it looks like we may have a chance of rain. We'll try and put on that notice that, okay, Monday is going to be the next day, instead of, we typically try and avoid Sunday, right? Nobody wants to work on site. Everyone, we try and respect that of the contractor and of the residents, to at least give it a day to do that. And typically on Saturdays, and with this contractor, I would fully expect them to work Saturdays, but typically the Saturday work's going to be a half a day. For the most part, would you say, Doug? Yeah. Usually, yeah. But a typical day, though, of construction is 7, 8, our noise ordinance kicks in at 7 a.m. or is alleviated. And I wouldn't be surprised if you start hearing trucks fire up at shortly after 7. Yep. And then, they're usually rocking and rolling at 7:30 with full on, construction. And then, when they finish up on a given day, it was 6 o'clock, typical, is things wind down and get quiet around 6. So we do allow them to go after, if they're right in the middle of something and they want to get it. Our noise ordinance goes to 10, right? I think it's 10, but they typically, 7 to 7 is kind of a big day for those guys, I would say. So. Yeah, well, again, we're going to try and anticipate that with our notices. But yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we typically don't try and give you too much advance notice, because we don't trust the weather forecast out that far. So we try and, play that game a little bit. And then we always get in trouble because the post office, right? And hey, nothing against the post office. We try and utilize them as a service. They're great. But if they're late on the mailing, right, then that affects us. So sometimes they don't like it, but sometimes we'll just do the notices in the box without going through USPS. We get in trouble doing that because they want, obviously they want the postage and everything like that. But, if it's something critical, we'll either do that or put it in your door, or we'll bring the message boards out and have the message boards update, so you can just peek down the road and say, okay, yep, this is what the plan is.
Yeah, most people don't know if you mail something in Holland to somebody else in Holland, it goes to their mail, comes back.
Yeah, it's not the best. But hey, but they do, all of our stuff, and we try and be pretty active. The local folks here at the post office are great, so we try and utilize them as much as we can. So.
Being at the end of the line, you probably won't spray grass in October either.
Yeah, we do. So typically, yeah, we will. We'll dormant seed, but oftentimes we're going to be back in the spring to touch things up. not for the first two phases. Usually we're all right, and if we see something that's not working, you know, if we get a dry spell or something and everything gets cooked, we'll just have them address it, you know, but we'll wait, right, until we get into the growing season again before we try and attempt it again, unless we know that there's good irrigation and stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully, we're able to do the restoration as we finish up. And yeah, we'll see once how things wrap up. So, but yeah, we're not going to leave it hanging, right? We want it to, looking good. But if we can at least get a base down before the weather gets bad, we can touch it up in the spring and it'll fill in. If we just leave it, right, trying to get it in the spring is tough. So we try and get something down, knowing that we may have some touch up in the spring on the late phase. So. Yeah, we've got it here, so we can. Yep, we're coming to the end anyway, so we can do that. Any other questions, particularly for those? How many do we have at home, Tammy?
About 9 or 10.
9 or 10 attending on the Zoom, on the YouTube. So thank you for that. Any other questions from those folks? No? Okay. How about any other questions here? Yeah, okay. Good. All right, well, thanks, everybody. We'll keep the YouTube open for another 15, 20 minutes. Feel free to utilize that. And then also, if there are questions after this, just send us an email to transportation@cityofholland.com or give us a call at 928-2430 or 2400 is our main number too. So, okay, thanks, everybody. Ryan, you want to grab that sheet?
Yeah, I got it open right here.
Okay. So we should talk about the snowmelt. I think, are you the one, or are you kind of the church's rep? So why don't, I don't have a card on me, but let's go ahead and